Hello, kind people. This is Dmitry. Welcome to what used to be my weekly listener recap, but the holidays interfered and I didn't record anything about the last puzzles of 2025, and I did not also record anything about the first two puzzles of 2026, but I kind of have to say a few words about them. I solved both of them on paper and I sent them off, so I don't even have access. I took a photo of each of my solutions, but I don't have really any notes that much. So the very first puzzle of the year was by Ifor, one of the kind of very well-known setters, and I'm for the first two I'm just going to very briefly go through what they were about. So here, from the, as you can see, from each of the down clues, you need to remove a letter, and these letters help to identify 23 with this long unclued entry, and so the letters that you got out of it was something like Minister of Fuel and Power, and so once you consider all the crossing letters, you realize that this is Philip No Baker, who, besides being a Minister of Fuel and Transport, is also famous for winning a silver Olympic medal in the Olympiad at Antwerp, and also winning a Nobel Peace Prize in, I think it was in 1950 something, 59, could be very wrong here. So anyway, and so then so reading the, and then there was some way of matching the characters of his name, including this hyphen, to a cross clue where so basically what happens is you read the first, so for example, this is P because this is the first letter, and this is the first time P appears in the clue, and so from here you need to extract S and E as the first and second letter after the character appearance, and then so from some of these you need to take the first letters, and from the others you need to take the second. So from here you need to take S, and this is the first letter of the word Stockholm, which is the location of the Nobel Peace Prize despite what Donald Trump thinks about it. And then you need to read the second letters in some others, and that gives you Antwerp, which was that Olympiad. And then you need to highlight certain entries that share this, so some of them were also Olympic medalists, and some of them were also Nobel Peace Prize winners, which is very nice. I think this is not the new idea in the sense that I remember solving a magpie puzzle on people who won both Nobel Prize and Oscar, I think. Bob Dylan, I think, being one of them. And that was this puzzle. So now let's move to the other one. Oops. So the other one is the puzzle by Miles. Miles is the set I typically struggle with. Somehow I'm not on the wavelength, and I kind of always end up questioning the decisions that they make. For example, in this puzzle, 3 6-letter answers must each be rearranged into 2 3-letter words for the indicated grid entries, and I still have no idea why this was made, apart from like loosely then matching the title of threes. But the end game was reasonably nice in that, so the 3, you had to remove a word from the 3 cross clues, and so one of them was this sport, and what was the other two? Now I don't even remember. Metal, possibly. Let's see if I have it in some other. Yeah, I think it's metal, and somewhere here you have also where was it? Yeah, and that. And where was the metal? I've seen it a moment ago. Anyway, so what then basically happened was that if you remove the letters of one of the columns, and I think it was something like this one, this column contained an anagram of the three words which then appeared in the grid, and the three words were judo, pith, and calf. So you had to highlight all the cells which had those which had those letters, and then you got the enlarged version of the words. Did I mess it up? Maybe I did. Maybe not. So this would be, say, how you'd get pith, and I can't remember whether it was here or there, where it was an H, something like that. And then you had like basically judo in here, something like that, and so on. So yeah, that was nice, but oh yeah, and then for some reason we had to write these words below the grid, and unless there is something that I'm missing in the puzzle, in which case I made the wrong submission, you just have to repeat these words below the grid, and I have absolutely no idea why. Because, yeah, it seems a bit pointless. Anyway, which brings us to this week's puzzle, which is a completely different beast, in that this feels like a first kind of proper, very meaty, and, to be honest, in part brutal listener of the year. It's called Fisher Transformation, and it's by Mr. Snakey. Mr. Snakey's previous one was also on a kind of mathematical topic, as is quite obvious from this one, as the very first thing that you see when you read the preamble is the words "wonderful computable algebraic answer." How to go about this one? I guess I'll have to talk a little bit about how that works, so, and why it is hard. So, first of all, you have perimeter entries which are jumbled. Then you have quite a lot of entries which are too long, including some of the perimeter ones, and need up to 3 consecutive letters omitted to fit. So for the perimeter ones, it means that you need to remove them first and then jumble. So, like, for example, 55 is a 10-letter answer, and you only have 8 cells here. You're very soon, so luckily at least we get the answer lengths in brackets, so we know that, you know, this is 8 letters, and so there are no letters removed from it. And if you look at which ones are which ones have letters removed, you realize that these are only the entries which have something to do with the perimeter. So all the internal entries are entered normally, and some of the perimeters and some of the entries that touch the perimeter also are entered normally. Like, for example, this one, which has 7. Which is the answer length is 7 and the entry length is 7 as well. But for some it is not the case. So, for example, here you have provide trainee with objective, which is land. L for trainee, objective with and, land is provide, but you have to remove one of the letters. And so when you start solving, when you have to remove one of the letters, or no matter how many letters you remove, because they're consecutive, for each place in the grid, that only leaves you 2 possible options. So for example, here I know it's land, so I'll end up with something like this when I first am going to solve it, and then I hope that by getting the crossing entries, I am able to disambiguate those. And this is a rather lengthy process, and sometimes you do not even disambiguate those entirely when obviously you get, you know what's the internal letters, but you need to discard one or more letters from the kind of end of the grid. For example, let's see, like here, we have telegraph, and so we need to remove 3 letters to fit, and we can, so either we remove R and we end with APH, or we remove RAP and we end up with H here. So things like that. And then on top of this, and sorry, I haven't even read the preamble, I should have done that. And then after filling the grid, okay, so some clues for answers entered normally have a letter misprinted in the definition. The corrections spell a hint. And the misprints spell something like Alexandrian math icon. Or something like that. And then after filling the grid, you need to apply substitution cipher to the perimeter entries to make them thematic, leaving only real words. And Hero of Alexandria is the mathematician that I know. And so you can then basically, so the way obviously to do that is to realize, for example, what are the real words that go in this pattern? So what can you put here? And you realize that there's not a lot of choice. And then you want this to also be a word. And then you realize that the word triangle would work. And this is not that hard. And so once you do all that, you realize that in the perimeter you have Heronian triangle, Pythagoras, square legs, and ultimate question. And to be honest, I'm not sure I fully understand what those square legs are doing here, or Pythagoras for that matter. Because Heronian, so what are Heronian triangle? They are triangles for which the both the sides and the area is are all integers. And so while there are kind of both of them, so you could have an so okay, so let's read the final bit of the preamble. You then need to draw a thematic shape, including the diagonal from cell 1 and part of the top border. And then you need to highlight the cell whose number is the area of the shape. So I read it, and there may be more than one way of reading it, but I read that we need the whole of the diagonal from cell 1, which is this, and rather conveniently, and maybe this is where Pythagoras comes to play, it has integer length, because the grid is 16 by 12. If you square 16, if you square 12, you add those to compute the length of this, you get 400, so the square root of 400 is 20, so the length of this diagonal is 20. And then if you look at the Heronian triangles with with their larger side, because we also need to use part of the top row being 20, you realize that there is one which has 20, 7, and whatever is remaining there. Is it 15? Let me double check. Heronian triangle. Let me get to... yeah, there is 1, 12, 15, 7, correct. Yeah, so and the area of that triangle is 42. And 42 is the answer to the ultimate question of whatever it is, life, universe, and actually how does the quote go? Of life, the universe, and everything. Yes. So presumably I need to highlight this. And this all feels very satisfying, apart from the fact that I still am a little bit puzzled about the square legs. But this is very enjoyable. I must admit that it was probably a little bit too much on the hard side for me, and as mathematical themes go, I still very much prefer my freeze groups from last year that, by Hawk, which is probably my favorite puzzle of last year. But this was great as well, and yeah, if, it's obviously too early in the year to talk about Puzzle of the Year competition, but this might have an outside shot. So thank you for watching, and I hope to be back to my weekly recaps. Although, if I'm struggling, I might relegate them to the monthly ones. We'll see. Thank you for watching, and hopefully see you next week. Bye.